fees. Ugh.
Well, well, I don't know. But let me ask you this: why is like XRP's going nuts, man? I'm excited about XRP. What, anybody else excited about XRP? Like, what's going on?
I couldn't be less excited, and I couldn't give a shit.
Don't listen to them Maxi haters, David.
Why doesn't someone explain to me?
He's hating.
Somebody explain to me the value of the XRP token. Forget about XRP's business. Forget about their technology. Just somebody make a coherent explanation to me why the XRP token has any value.
I don't know, but it ain't X to me.
A lot of people with money think it has value. That's the only logical conclusion, I guess, right?
You know, Mickle's up. He's got something to say. Let's go, brother. Jump in there, Mickle. Mickle, you can jump in there, brother.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's actually very similar to the value proposition of Bitcoin. It's just a decentralized neutral currency on the ledger. Now, you choose to have faith in Bitcoin. There's other people who want to hold value in XRP, but it's almost in some ways the same exact value proposition. You choose to assign that value to Bitcoin as that store of value. Other people choose to assign it to XRP. Now, when it comes down to the XRP ledger, you can essentially use XRP as the native liquidity for that ledger. So the more and more you have different corporations looking to access that liquidity, tokenized assets on the XRP ledger, XRP sits as that neutral liquidity in that entire system. So XRP is the decentralized neutral asset of the ledger and just sits as liquidity for the entire ecosystem. So the more people who want to use that for payments, the more people who use XRP as the engine to funnel all the payments on the ledger.
How decentralized?
How is it decentralized? Like, it's decentralized through validators. So there's validators on the network, very similar to Bitcoin, and all those validators come together to create a decentralized network. There's really no difference. It's just a different way in which the validation happens. In the Bitcoin ecosystem, they mine. In the XRP ledger system, there's no mining, but it's still completely decentralized.
How many validators are there?
I believe there's I can check real time for you right now. I think
It's
there's
like 120 or something, right?
I think there's 1,000 nodes and 185 validators.
And you consider 185 validators?
Yeah, I was going to ask, is that how many nodes?
955 nodes right now.
So does that mean that every validator is managing 3 nodes?
No, it's a very different correlation on how the validators and nodes link. They're different pieces of hardware and they function differently. I think the more important thing you need to realize when it comes to the XRP.
So explain something to me. So you're saying a validator is a piece of equipment?
Yeah, so very similar.
No human interaction?
Very similar to how a Bitcoin miner operates, except obviously using a lot less electricity.
But it's a tax-paying entity. Right?
Yes, so there are people running. There are people running miners. Validators, absolutely.
Yeah, so that it's a tax event. See, that's what I'm saying though. If you have 185 of those managing 1,000 nodes, call it, isn't that like 5 nodes per?
No, they don't manage the nodes. So they're different pieces of equipment on the ledger, and they have different functionality. And we can
so there's no crossover at all.
Some people who run validators might also run nodes, but there's many people who run nodes who don't run validators. So very different functionality across both those pieces of equipment.
Yeah.
When I look at the token,
this would be true for Solana too, right? Solana's got hundreds of validators, maybe more.
Yeah, so the big difference between the XRP ledger and some of these other systems is there's no actual inflation of XRP. So in these other systems, essentially a bunch of people spin up these different validators and stuff to essentially just farm the token, and the token supply inflates to infinity, and essentially all these different people plug into the system just to farm tokens. In the XRP ledger scenario, the token is actually deflationary, and the amount of XRP in existence is going down. Because of that, you're not really just getting some fake monetary incentive to go run a piece of hardware on the network. And most of the people who are committed to running hardware on the network are institutions using the ledger, projects building on the XRP ledger, or other people who want that system to remain robust into the future. It's important to realize that the XRP ledger has been up and running since 2013, and there's never actually been any kind of security breach on the ledger. It was the second token after Bitcoin. So we can sit here and argue all day about the security of XRP, but the simple fact of the matter is it's been by far and away one of the most secure blockchains in the entire space. And what it's been doing is only getting stronger and stronger in terms of that economic security.
So
Mickle, I
what
have a
happens when
question
they
about
run?
the token. If I have a
Go
question
ahead,
about the
Thomas.
token, it seems the way as I understood it, and I bought XRP back 8 years ago. I just never sold it. Um, uh, the issue is for me, it's at the time I bought it, it looked like a utility token, meaning it wasn't a store of value. That it was a transitory token to be able to handle the way I understood it at the time was cross-border settlements when I'm trying to convert one type of currency to another in a cross-border settlement. And it could automate that, and I could move my sending currency into the XRP token structure, and then that liquidity transferred over to the receiving organization. So it acted almost as an intermediary, and it happened very quickly. But as a utility token, I'm trying to get a sense of how the value of it would go up, because as people who are buying this, they want number to go up. So let's just say all the thesis around XRP and Ripple moves forward, and it does become a widely used payment system for settling cross-border settlements. Why would the value of the token go up?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. And I just want to start off and say one of the most important things we need to say is that's Ripple's use case for XRP, right? Like there are so many different products that have different use cases for XRP, but Ripple does look at XRP and some of their products as that bridge token. So fiat currency to XRP to fiat currency. And if you've ever used XRP, it's insane. You literally move XRP anywhere in the world, less than 2 seconds, costs less than a penny. And people, you can just watch the Explorer, billions of dollars being moved over the network. So at the end of the day, I think it's actually pretty simple. First of all, you have the use case of obviously people wanting to invest into the network like we see in almost everything, and institutions wanting to get exposure simply because of they see that protocol getting more important into the future. They want to own the underlying token. So just like almost any single other network, Bitcoin, people want to buy and hold the token because they see it as an investment in the underlying network. When it comes to Ripple's utility, XRP acts as liquidity for the entire system. So the more dollar values you have going in and out of XRP, the more XRP you have locked up being used for these liquidity purchases. I mean, as you can imagine, if the entire market cap of XRP, the XRP ledger was $10 and someone went to go move hundreds of millions of dollars over the network, they would have to be putting volume into XRP in order to make those transactions happen. XRP gets locked up in all of this. There's automated market makers on the XRP ledger. XRP gets burned from existence. And ultimately, this just puts a lot of volume into XRP that ultimately needs to increase the price. XRP acts as liquidity for the network. And the more dollars you have coming in, the more liquidity you need via XRP.
All right, so given the fast transaction times, the working capital required is low if it's a transitory token. So I have a $200 billion cap. What is given what you just said, what is the transaction throughput from a peak load and from a daily dollar volume? Do you have that number? Do you understand what I'm asking?
If you're looking, are you looking for XRP volume numbers? I can absolutely pull
No,
that.
what I'm saying is you're making the case that the value of the token goes up, that increases the liquidity of the entire network as a utility. So, so that allows me to handle lots of global transactions. There is a peak load in terms of how much can you put through if it's, say, currently sitting at 200 billion in market cap. And then there's this an aggregate, what's the practical volume that you can go through there? So if I were to say, if XRP, someone said, hey, this is going to replace the Swift network or something like along those lines, what would that look like if that were to happen? And is that even possible?
So there's actually what you're asking is a fantastic question, and it's really unfortunate that this came off the internet. But actually, the current head of digital assets at Rock and a former Ripple board member actually put together an XRP price calculator based off representing the different volumes that you're talking about. And this was actually publicly available information where you could just go in and type in those flows you're exactly speaking of and go get XRP's price based off these theoretical calculations. Now, when you start to put in things like the numbers you're talking about, you came away with ridiculous prices for XRP. And the big pushback that was always thrown at the XRP community is, oh, this is never going to happen. No one's using XRP, blah, 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 blah. But if you started to throw in like 5% of Swift volume or something like that, I mean, you ended up with like hundreds of dollars of XRP. Now you're trusting the math done by these people who are obviously Harvard graduates. They put a lot of time and effort into doing this calculator. There's always assumptions made, right? So there's a lot of assumptions in the equation. But I think the idea behind most XRP holders is the world we're going into is increasingly digital. And what we see is people like Elon Musk, people like all these different major corporations are looking for ways to make payments better. Starlink is already using stable coins to move money around. At the end of the day, you just need fast and efficient neutral protocols to be able to move value on. And what Ripple is doing is simply going to a lot of these big institutions and saying, hey, how about you don't figure out cryptocurrency yourself and we hook you up to some really clean centralized software to give you access to the decentralized XRP ledger. So if you have a fundamental thesis that cryptocurrencies are going to be successful and increasingly used for the same reason we all in retail like using cryptocurrency, I think it's safe to say there's probably going to be big institutional use cases as well. And Ripple just kind of acts as that, going to a lot of these institutions and saying, hey, let us build you easy ways for you to get access to the XRP ledger and use this new technology to make money move faster.
So let me ask you a hypothetical. If the world moved to a hyper Bitcoinization where Bitcoin was the basis for all things, then there would be no need for the XRP token. But in a world where
I
it's a
don't want to. Can I make
multi-token
one quick
environment,
comment on that? If
yeah,
every single person was using Bitcoin right now, the entire world adopted Bitcoin on the base protocol, every single person in the world would get 2 transactions over their lifetime. So unless you're talking about some insane scaling capability that likely doesn't really exist right now, I mean, you've seen the Lightning Network, but
I,
that hasn't caught
I
on. It's
appreciate
just
that.
that it's hard to
Yeah.
throw around that theoretical because that could
It,
never work on the network.
this is I wasn't making so much of an argument around the capacity of the transactions of Bitcoin. I know that there's a limit there. It's more along the lines of the value proposition of XRP is to handle a multi-token global commerce where settlements have to get made when I'm transacting, when I'm originating in one token and settling and landing in another. You need that that reconciliation and settlement process to do that. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say there's a lot more going on the XRP ledger than just that, but that's a great explanation of how Ripple is using XRP.
So how does so I'm really only familiar with the cross-border settlement use case. So I'm sure there's others, but let me ask more about that. So the cross-border settlement, how does the exchange rate? So if I'm going to swap Japanese yen for Indian rupees, right? Typically, and a lot of times, what would happen is you would go yen to dollar, dollar to rupee. I assume now you can simplify that by going yen to Ripple, Ripple to rupee. How do the exchange rates and currency pairs work so that the sending and receiving party appreciate that it's an efficient transaction?
Well, this is the holy grail of it all because this is where it gets really exciting. That's the biggest piece of friction in the entire equation right now, right? You're still counting on exchanges to do the swaps. But the holy grail of where we're headed and where I think this world is going is where these large institutions and governments have tokenized versions of their own currency. And the second you have tokenized representations of currency in these native systems, then the only thing you need to swap is through the XRP ledger DEX. The XRP ledger was the first cryptocurrency network ever built with a decentralized exchange in it. So if you got a single institution to issue their own native currency on the ledger, then they can go seamlessly from currency to currency through XRP, and those exchange rates would be fractions of a penny. So the holy grail of where we're headed is institutional clarity for these institutions to directly issue their forms of value on these networks. And once you have native issuance and interoperability across these different networks, say connecting centralized private JP Morgan blockchain to private Bank of America blockchain, you really need a neutral liquidity protocol that connects it all so you don't have to create plumbing between each individual source. And that's where public blockchains play a really important part. But the second you can start tokenizing value in these systems and have them interoperate with things like the XRP ledger, then essentially there is no exchange rate. But you're absolutely correct. One of the biggest pieces of friction right now in this entire thing is you're really mixing this centralized TradFi world with the XRP DeFi world, and those exchange rates do apply. Typically, it's still cheaper and faster than going through the traditional system, but the more we can get to a native digital system and have tokenized representations of value directly swapping with XRP, you really reach a space age financial system where money is just flying from place to place with almost no friction.
Who are the big TradFi companies behind the scenes that are very interested in using this?
Well, funny enough, actually, in the middle of the Ripple SEC case, JP Morgan released an internal note, and directly in it, it said that if XRP was able to get out of this case without being significantly hurt by the SEC, it was poised for mass adoption because of the large institutions it was already working with. So Ripple was working with Bank of America back in 2017. They're working with many large banks in Japan, including SBI Bank. They actually just released a partnership with the Qatar National Bank as well. So these are national banks all around the world who are using Ripple. They also have CBDC products with smaller countries like Bhutan as well as Palau. And a lot of these are probably seen as test beds. But recently it's been reported that Ripple's actually working with close to 30 different nations on creating central bank digital currencies. And everyone can put their own thoughts around that. But ultimately, it's the nation's choice. They're going to go with whatever technology they want. Ultimately, Ripple's just providing them the infrastructure. But those are just to name a few. If you just go on Google and type in banks working with Ripple, you'll get a list of close to 500 to 600 banks publicly working with Ripple, not even talking about the banks who have said, okay, we're working with you, but we don't want to necessarily make it public.
I have one more question, and I'll let other people jump in. So, some of the criticism that I've heard, and I like to see, because you seem very conversant in this, I want to hear you address it, is the decoupling of the XRP token to the Ripple Labs technology. What is it about the Ripple token, or the XRP, that rides on the Ripple network that couldn't be replaced with another token? Is there something special about the way it's set up that I couldn't just use Ripple's technology for these node validators and transaction throughputs, but use some other type of token?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and it really comes down to the liquidity profile. I mean, the liquidity profile in the network effect for XRP and the entire ecosystem, like I said, has been being built out for 13 years. The code base is extremely robust. It's very, very difficult to go spin out a public blockchain that can get the mass adoption XRP has. So to go just say, oh, we're just going to go replicate this with something else, it's almost impossible. The XRP ledger is one of the few cryptocurrencies, I believe, that was really set up right from the start. It has the native DEX. It has the automated market maker. It has this deep liquidity across a lot of major institutions. And when you couple that with the fact that Ripple is significantly invested into the XRP ledger, they hold something like 45 billion XRP tokens, you just get to the point very quickly where it's completely nonsensical for them to ever drop something like XRP. It's the beating heart of their entire business model, and they are really the steward of creating mass adoption on the XRP ledger for these traditional institutions. But I will say there's also a massive retail community behind the XRP ledger building your more retail style products that you also see in a lot of other chains.
I've got one question. Thomas, are you done with that?
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I asked a lot of questions. Sorry.
No, you're good. I was listening. I loved it. Mickle, first off, hats off to you, man. You're a great spokesperson. The biggest problem that I've always had with XRP, and you're talking to a guy that bought it at 10 cents several years ago. So I've been in and out.
How rich are you guys? Thomas,
Oh, no.
Thomas,
I didn't hold it.
I
flipped.
I mean, hey, by the way, just to test here, how much background noise are y'all hearing? I got some headphones.
We can still hear
A
you.
lot.
That's good.
Okay, well, I'm going to stay quiet. I'm watching my girlfriend basketball and watch that. But fascinating discussion. Let's continue the discussion with Mickle. A little bit easier. $2, you know, it was a $1.50 on this discussion. But it's amazing how numbers can open people's willingness to at least understand something. I appreciate you being here, dude, and the ability to articulate this in a way. I think it's worth the discussion. I mean, because quite frankly, Bitcoin could not handle the entire planet. It can't handle it. It's so great, Clark, and this may be discussion for you now. It's so great to have delayed 4 years from last Trump thing, right? And to do a whole thing all at one time. I don't know. So I think there's going to be some meanings here. And for any group that's been able to can fight a case that long, I got to tip my hat off to them. I mean, if they got through that shit, that's interesting. So what are y'all thoughts on it? I don't think they're the same products, and I don't think they serve the same market. I say one take away from the other. But it looks like it might get approved at some level. And I think that's what this whole virus about the Trump thing. Thoughts?
Yeah, just real quick, Gary. I mean, like, I'm a massive Bitcoin holder, right? So, like, for me, it's not like this, oh, it's one thing or the other. Oh, I hate Bitcoin, right? Like, that's the kind of crazy thing about when I get on these spaces and everyone's like so upset by this idea of XRP. Like, I look at them as completely different things. I come from a surgical robotics engineering background. For me, it's like, oh, this one thing is this store of value and everyone loves it because it's an opt out of the financial system.
I think
And this
we're
other thing
beyond.
is new rails.
I think we're beyond that. And I think, look, everyone has a role to play in walking away irritated from a conversation like that. And I don't think it's the facts that people will start talking about. I think it's the presentation and if you interrupt me 10 times, I will start not to like you a lot. I don't care if you're right. If you lose in your presentation, even if you're right, I've known really smart people that, like, they just couldn't, they were assholes. Well, it just doesn't go anywhere. So I think we're all learning how to communicate better. If people are willing to answer a question, this has been if you would have told me this run was coming, I still would have said that the people in the XRP community have a lot to learn about the product because kids have been as articulate as you.
That's kind of where I was headed. That's so true. That's kind of where I was going. Kind of give Mickle his flowers. You're so articulate. You've been able to speak. You're the first XRP maxi, or at least partial maxi, that has come on a stage and made a half of a cent. Right. I love
I
what you
agree.
said. You've articulated it very well. You've not shied away from questions. At times I winced because it was a little fanboyish, but you had receipts. So I love it. I've always had a problem with XRP, and I think Gary's had the same problem. The XRP people that come onto stages are undereducated, and they're just XRP to the moon. It's great. Well, what's it do? It's just great. Like it's nonsense, and they come with such passion and fire. Hats off to the community. If you held from 10 cents, like I didn't, good for you. I had to rebuy at 150, then I sold, and then I rebought it too, and then I sold. I mean, I've made money on each flip, but the ones that held from 10 cents, crazy. That's awesome. If you're one of those XRP army guys, good for you. But my problem is they're not all as articulate, educated as you. So I hope you're getting out there and making that noise. But I have a quick question to bring this out of space and back to planet Earth about XRP, right? And then we can take it wherever you want after that. Other people hop in after this because this will be my last question for him. Why would I run a validator on XRP when I'm not getting any reward for it whatsoever? If I'm not getting mining fees, if I'm not getting any preferential anything other than just a vote on the consensus of where the protocol goes, what is the benefit for me to run a validator other than just fanboyism?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And first, let me just say, it's so funny. Sometimes I sit here clawing my eyes out when certain people get on stage, start blabbering nonsense about XRP. So, totally feel that. I don't think that's something that just you guys have to deal with. But one of the things I will say is there is like the amount of knowledge and education that doesn't come onto these spaces is like very, very lopsided. And it's unfortunate because you just haven't had the mixing of these communities. But like, to be honest, like I learned all of what I know from people smarter than me in the community. So I'll just put that out there to start. But on top of that, it's actually very interesting. And it's a great question. It goes to the core premise of why the XRP ledger is set up in the no incentive, or no incentive is the best incentive. The core idea is that if you are getting value from the XRP ledger, if you're an institution that relies on the XRP ledger, if you're a project that uses the XRP ledger, then you want a robust, decentralized system for you to be able to operate your business. So the incentive is that you are putting back resources into the system that you are using because you want it to be robust and powerful. So the whole idea is that you don't need economic reasons necessarily from the protocol to be supplying that incentive for you to make the network stronger, because the simple incentive of it being critical to your business and important utility is enough for you to go back and provide that validation power to the network. Now, we can go and argue whether or not that's right, wrong. What we have seen is over time is XRP through this model has provided enough security and enough validation power for it to be extremely robust over the past 10, 13 years.
Well, just a couple questions. So first, XRP or Ripple Labs, that has a CEO, a marketing department. Is that correct?
Ripple does, XRP doesn't.
Right. So Ripple has a CEO, and who is the largest holder of XRP tokens, and how much do they hold?
Ripple, and I believe the last time I checked, it's something like 45 billion XRP tokens.
Out of 100 billion, correct?
Yeah, so it's 100 billion max supply of XRP tokens, and that max supply of XRP tokens is constantly decreasing. So XRP is constantly getting burned from the ecosystem.
So what happens when we run out of XRP?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, right now, based on the burn rate, it's about like, I think it's like 10,000 years or something like that. And also, you can just have validators vote, just like on the Bitcoin system. If something needs to be changed, you can vote to change the rules of the system. So if you did get to a point where the amount of XRP was spiraling, right, and got like crazy, the validators would come together and vote to put a change in that made the burn rate more sustainable.
So it's centralized to, I think you said 100 and let's just call it 150 validators can change the network.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually in a way very different than Bitcoin, because if you take a look at the Bitcoin mining pools, I mean, when you take a look at how much it would take in terms of to convince those Bitcoin mining pools to change their decision, I mean, you wouldn't actually need anywhere close to the amount of validators you'd need on the XRP ledger. So you can make that argument almost for every single chain. You're essentially just having to coerce a lot of people to do things that would negatively hurt the ecosystem they've built on. I think we can kind of all agree it's pretty unrealistic.
Well, I'm not sure that's intellectually honest. Like, look how difficult it's been to make changes to the Bitcoin network.
I mean,
Right? Like,
there's been massive updates Ripple has been dying for to happen to the XRP ledger that haven't happened because the ecosystem didn't want them. So like you can say the same exact thing. Like Ripple's wanted changes to the XRP ledger, but ultimately the validators didn't get on board and support it. And you would argue that Ripple would have more influence than anyone on things happening on the XRP ledger, but the community just does things sometimes that Ripple doesn't necessarily want. I mean, that's the whole premise of a decentralized system, right? Like if the whole argument is that XRP is not decentralized, we can go down that entire rabbit hole. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, let's face it, XRP came out right after Bitcoin, and the people who created the XRP ledger were Bitcoin enthusiasts. It really came from a Bitcoin core value perspective. Like that's why they set it up. And Satoshi himself came out and said that Ripple was one of the few companies doing anything with trust besides centralizing it into a central server. So even the original Bitcoin ethos is embedded into how the XRP ledger was structured from the start.
yeah, I mean, I can make the same argument for Dashcoin, right? I mean, it's still centralized.
Yeah, I mean, you could make an argument on like anything being a relatively, it's a scale, right? There's a scale of decentralization. Some people want something super far end on that scale, and some people want something on a different place in the scale. I think the most important thing to look at, how robust has the network been? Have there been security flaws? Have there been hacks? Have there been compromises? That just hasn't happened with the XRP ledger. So, I mean, you can decentralize something to the point where you get one transaction every single year and the entire system's broken and it's using the entire world's supply of electricity. I think we can all agree that that's pointless. And you can also have something so centralized that a single person could take down the server. Obviously, there's a middle ground here, and we can argue where something should lie on the middle ground, how much throughput you need versus decentralization and those trade-offs. But I think the biggest thing is, can people make changes to the protocol unilaterally? And the answer is no for the XRP ledger. And has it been safe and secure for the time it's been operating? And the answer is absolutely yes.
Hey, Mickle. I just want to make a comment here. Thank you, Gary, for allowing me to speak. Comparing protocols.
Well, at least you know what you're talking about when you research your stuff. So I'm going to give you props on that. Going
Can
back
you
to what that
guys,
guy said, Mac, you are the most well versed.
can you guys hear me?
We hear you. I don't think that RSR hears you. So RSR, you can take
Oh,
that.
okay.
Hey man,
Yeah,
thanks
no, I
for
was just gonna
being
make a
a
comment.
tremendous ambassador for XRP.
Hey, David, somebody
Oh
speaking. Daniel
my
speaking.
bad. I didn't,
Well, I'm going to recycle you, okay? I'm sorry, Daniel. Go ahead, bud.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you, Dark, thank you, Mike. Comparing protocols and comparing prices and tokens and all that, it's pretty small dig energy, right? To start off, right? If we start from the basis of people pricing an asset, we're all wrong, right? Because Bitcoin should be at much more valuation than it is right now. So picking on XRP for comparing it to Bitcoin on a number of nodes, miners, whatever you want to call it. That's probably not the right way to do it. But I think Michael, you brought up a pretty interesting point that I kind of want to surface out. You mentioned no incentive is the best incentive, right? And you spoke about the context of Ripple, but I want to bring it up to the context of Bitcoin, right? Because there's always been this fear about the halvings, right? Every 4 years we have this cycle, and the miners' Coinbase gets halved all the time. So where's incentive for these miners to keep going and doing all this work? It's hard work. Nobody wants to go into Bitcoin mining. You have to be fucking crazy to start that endeavor. But no incentive is a great incentive. So maybe that's the solution for Bitcoin in 20, 30 years from now. Nation states were going to have to mine Bitcoin, not for the Coinbase, but to keep the Bitcoin ledger going. Maybe that's the ultimate goal for Bitcoin. So anyways, that's just a comment between all the mud, XRP and comparisons to other chains. I thought you came out with a very good food for thought. Yeah. Thanks.
No, I appreciate that, and like, and it's so interesting, right? Because like these are things that were decided by people so much smarter than me, and I've just had the fantastic opportunity to be able to learn from them. But it was Bitcoiners, right? Like all this industry started with Bitcoiners, especially when you're talking about XRP and Bitcoin. I mean, it was created by those people who started Bitcoin and who just thought there needed to be a system that architected things a little differently so you didn't run into some of the same scalability issues. So at its premise, it's the same core values that were created for Bitcoin, just a different application of that underlying technology.
Wait,
Mickle, I will say you're a wonderful ambassador for XRP. I mean, I have huge concerns when 45% of the float is owned by one concern. That just smells, it smells extremely concentrated. But all that being said, I have intellectual curiosity as to the rails and to the Ripple platform, and I really do appreciate you coming up and giving an extremely intellectual approach.
Can I jump
Yeah.
on?
Go
Can
ahead.
I jump on that real quick and say one thing because it's very important. With the
Sure.
trade-off you have with XRP and
don't
Bitcoin,
oversell it, man.
so the trade-off you have with XRP and
You're killing
Bitcoin.
the deal, bro. You're killing the deal.
Wait, hold on. This is you guys are gonna like this. The trade-off you have with XRP and Bitcoin is distribution of the token. Because at the end of the day, what Bitcoin has is a very complex consensus mechanism to distribute the token among everyone who wants to be able to get access to that token by providing validation power. And you can argue that distribution of the Bitcoin token is massively beneficial because it creates this mechanism where everyone can get access to newly minted Bitcoin. With the XRP ledger, one of the trade-offs initially was saying to not go through that extremely complicated consensus mechanism to distribute the token. It would all be distributed all at once. And that's the major difference between that distribution of the token between Bitcoin and XRP. There's trade-offs in scalability, but the trade-off for Bitcoin is that there's more access to decentralizing that token supply. Ripple's strategy is to sell the token supply to financial institutions that want to work with the underlying XRP protocol and ultimately release it to the entire broader ecosystem over time, whereas Bitcoin has the mining method of distributing the token that way. So it's all about token distribution, which has its trade-offs either way.
Mickle, to date, they've been giving away the XRP token for those institutions willing to
No,
partner with
no, they sell it.
Ripple.
Yeah, it's sold. They
It's
normally
sold
they
in lieu
normally
of
sell they normally sell XRP OTC, and that's normally how most of the transactions happen. It's almost OTC sales, so it never actually hits the market. And I actually think it creates a very interesting value proposition because I started getting involved in XRP maybe 2 years ago, and Ripple had something like 65 billion. They're already down to 45 billion. Ripple said that they were going to be selling XRP from its escrow to a lot of the ETF providers who are coming online. That's probably going to drastically take away XRP from Ripple, and eventually all the XRP will have to be sourced from the open market. And I would argue there's probably billions of dollars of buy volume coming into Ripple's escrow right now, OTC, that's not even hitting the open market and impacting the price.
and it's off chain, right? So I can't see these transactions.
Yeah, you can normally see the actual XRP moving, but you wouldn't see the buy volume on an exchange necessarily. So if you watch any kind of XRP tracker, like randomly it'll be like 500 million or 1 billion XRP transferred from Ripple to this wallet, and you really don't know anything else than that.
Yeah, so
So
I don't have transparency on the price. So they could be moving that stuff for a penny.
Yeah, actually, it was very interesting. It actually came up in the Ripple SEC case, just some of the discounts Ripple put out for XRP when institutions did purchase in bulk. Now, to be completely fair, like it absolutely wasn't happening for a penny. Normally, it was like 20% under market price or things like that. But that was actually one of the specifically argued in the case was kind of those discounts on XRP. And there's a whole bunch of different things. It's like you get the discount because we have to give you this lockup. XRP tokens are locked up for this amount of time, so you can pay our under market price. But that's essentially what was happening there.
I mean, I don't mean to be rude to anyone on the stage, but I am going to step in and say that like XRP is not really required for any CBDC to exist, right? So the CBDCs can exist on the Ripple blockchain, and XRP is not required for that, right?
That's correct. Nobody said that.
There's no Ripple blockchain, so I think that's kind of the
Or
start of the
whatever,
issue.
the whole XRP thing. Like it's
But
not required for
nobody
CBDC.
said that though.
Well, but
Nobody told you.
that was the selling point on the whole thing. CBDCs was was the whole selling point
I
on.
think you're
Ripple's been
hyper
clear that
focusing.
XRP does not have to be used to make a transaction on the network.
I think you're hyper focusing into one of Ripple's product lines and internalizing that into the core premise of what XRP is for, but it's absolutely not. All Ripple is saying is if we connect a bunch of big money to the XRP ledger, then it's very obvious the neutral decentralized cryptocurrency that functions as liquidity for the network will be useful to these institutions. So I don't think anyone made the premise that this is all one big CBDC thing and that XRP has to be used for CBDCs. No, it's just if you connect the XRP
But
ledger
where
to
does the
big money.
liquidity come from? Like I'm finding fallacies in what you're saying here, and I'm just a guy with this dog whining behind him trying to peek the blinds open. But
I think you're finding fallacies in things I'm not saying and thinking I'm saying them. I think that's the bigger issue. I think most
All
of
right, let's
Can I
take a
field
pause for
a
a second.
long question?
Hold on one sec. Let's take a pause. We got like 700 people in this room, and the room's only been retweeted 35 times. So why don't we all take a second, take a breath, hit the purple pill, retweet the room, give everybody up here a follow. I really appreciate that the tenor of the conversation. Just everybody keep it professional. I know that there's a lot of animosity between the Bitcoin and the Ripple community, and that's fine. But we're not gonna devolve into something that's not professional.
Yeah, there's
Hey,
probably
Dark Side,
not
real
enough.
quick. I'm going to go
There's
real
Hey,
quick.
probably,
Grant.
excuse me.
Hold on one second. Hold on a second. I'm going to go ahead and speak for the entire
I
XRP
just want to
community
say
and say
one
that
thing
we
before you say
acknowledge.
that, Mike. There's
Grant just cut me off. He's big dick.
you
Freaking.
surrendered. You surrendered. You
I
surrendered.
surrendered. Go ahead.
So there's probably not enough money on the planet for XRP and Bitcoin. When I hear you guys talk like this, I'm like, man, it's like, is there a scarcity issue in the Bitcoin community?
Kind of bringing this to Bitcoin, and maybe Darkside can answer this, but if
well,
MicroStrategy does their orange deal and they start building an ID platform and this tokenization on Bitcoin, wouldn't that make XRP obsolete, or could they compete with it? That's just a shower thought. I don't know.
Can I redirect the focus question to everybody with this incredible knowledge so I can get a couple different perspectives? That if I can jump in, use just a couple seconds.
You have jumped in. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. So back to multi-sig lending, and I'll just give a specific case use, and it could be any kind of lending structure, so at different margins. So real-time thing, I'm following up with development companies. It's not appropriate for me to say who, but serious producers. We have a serious accountant willing to attach. He did not have pre-existing crypto knowledge. He's got 30 years in the business. Like real serious people are waiting for me to follow up. So I have kind of open source composited intelligence as I've gone, as I was kind of trying to state earlier. So like whether it's a $450,000 investment or loan for say like a 9-hour script, and then our secondary function, if I get buy-in with everything, is a $3 million film and television development packaging incubation fund. And I looked into the regulation CF versus a Series A that they might, if they really wanted to go hard, they can later launch a Reg A Tier 2. So in the initial, my knowledge needs to catch up to what the options are if they're going to use Bitcoin, if they're going to give our partnership money, if they're going to loan the money. There's just I'm realizing from when I jumped in here tonight, you guys were talking about really awesome stuff, and I know other people have views on Ripple. They have different views on Bitcoin. Just what the options are, because I often find people have a hardened view on one side of the agnostic.
you rugged a little bit, I think.
Grant, what's going on, man? How you doing, brother?
Man, this thing is flowing like freaking water in here right now. If Grant's not
Grant,
talking,
Fucking horrible.
Grant,
I'm ready to go. First of all, guys, there's $350 trillion worth of real estate on this planet. What's the total dollars of equities just in the U.S.?
I thought it was around 100 trillion.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
100.
broke 100. It broke 112 trillion a year or two ago.
Yeah. How big is XRP?
I think like
175 bill.
100,
200 billion.
yeah, 170
Couple
billion,
hundred
160.
billion, and what 2 trillion?
187 billion today.
Yeah, and 2 trillion for
Visa,
two.
MasterCard are $1 trillion.
Yeah, 2
The entire
trillion,
financial industry is 24 trillion. All the banks
and
combined.
then 2 trillion for what? Bitcoins, and you guys are worried about whether I can't believe how many people argue about the Solana, the XRP, and the Bitcoin. Like, if XRP does something, Bitcoin's going to suffer, guys. There's so much room for all this stuff; it's unbelievable.
Thank you, Grant. That's what I was wanting to say. There's room for more than one winner. There's all kinds of industries, different kinds of use cases. There's plenty of space for winners.
And if there's only one space for one winner, you don't have an industry.
Yeah, and they actually complement each other.
100% Absolutely. That's a great point. I don't really get. I've been in this for 7 years, and I don't get all the competition. But definitely a shout out to Mickle. He's a great ambassador for the XRP Army. We certainly hang in spaces, and I did share a couple of links up top that he was talking about earlier. One with the valuation calculator, and then also a site where it shows you the worldwide transactions that are going on with the XRP ledger in real time. So anyway, Mickle, appreciate you, buddy.
No, appreciate you for doing that. People always ask me to grab links. I'm like, there's 4 people asking me questions, and now I have to go search through links. But no, yeah, I completely agree, Grant. Like, this is going to be this is going to be the biggest industry in the entire world, in my opinion. And there's going to be so many different players who all have different specialties, and they need to complement each other. Like, if every single person was using Bitcoin, and don't take this as a knock against Bitcoin, it's absolutely not. We would get 2 transactions each. Like, that's not realistic. We need a system where these different things interoperate and each one has its specific purpose. Bitcoin was the first mover. It's always going to have tremendous mind share and being a store of value. But what's the point in making Bitcoin take on all these different things that it was never meant to do and probably can't do? Just have that offloaded to something else. Have another system that's made to handle that, and have Bitcoin stick to what it's good at doing, which is protecting value, being a long-term store of value, and being economic security. It doesn't have to be some massive competition and trying to turn Bitcoin into doing something it was never meant to be.
Mickle,
That's
thanks,
right.
brother. I really appreciate it, man. I think you've done, as others have said, you're an incredible ambassador, and I appreciate the knowledge. Hey, why don't we pivot to the room, the title of the room, Bitcoin and Trump. Anyone got any thoughts on what happens in a couple days with the Trump administration, executive orders, strategic Bitcoin reserve? Is it important? Is it not important? I'd love to kind of pivot here a little bit and go back to our topic.
Donald Trump is the messiah of the blockchain.
What are you
That's going
thinking,
to be the
Grant?
pivot. That's going to be the
How does,
pivot to 150K.
yeah, Grant, how does how does it play out? How do you think Trump attacks the situation? Does he not care about price? Does he become just, I want to get in? Is he passive and lay in the weeds? How do you think he approaches his entree into kind of next generation money?
I think he wants to be first to market. Look, he's a real estate guy. I think he gets it. More importantly, and I think this what's underestimated is the boys. The boys are very pro crypto. And what are they? 35 and 40 years old, 30, 45 years old, maybe, I don't know, 50. Like they got a lot of long runway in front of those guys. And so they didn't take cabinet positions. They're going to be in the background guiding the boat or the ship. And so I think he listens to those guys. And I don't know what their play is. I'm sure they have something. They're entrepreneurial. This is the first time we've had an entrepreneurial family in the White House. I don't know of any entrepreneurial family, and I could be wrong, but that has ever been in the White House at this level. They're ambitious and they're futurists. So this is a good thing. Then you got Elon. Then you got the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. These guys are all pro future money, and they're invested in the space.
Whose money, Grant?
Whose money? What do you mean, whose money?
When you say pro money, I want to know whose money.
They're pro finance. Whose money? Your money, my money, our money. Whose money is any money anyway?
It's dawned on
Everything you buy, somebody else owned at some point. This is a pass through. So
Hey, Grant, it's dawned on me that if Doge is going to be successful, they're going to have to do some wealth destruction. And in order to make up for that being deflationary, do they use the crypto space, and I mean the crypto space, including non-Bitcoin assets, to ramp back up that inflation to keep the system from crashing?
I think so, because I know a lot of people are worried about inflation. I don't see the inflation in the marketplace. Do you, Dark Side?
No, I'm far more worried about deflation. I
I
think
am
if they're going,
I am
yeah, if they're going to
100%.
hack this,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, if they're going to hack the shit out of government jobs, and they're going to hack government down, and they want to get, simplify income tax, they want to do all these things. All of that is deflationary, right? And that money has to be made up somewhere, or we go into a spiral.
yeah. Unless we become a pro-U.S. manufacturing. We have the biggest consumer population on planet Earth. You can't easily duplicate that. Like I would rather it'd be easier to build a manufacturing economy than it would be a consumer economy. And everybody needs us. Canada needs us, China needs us. China's in a major recession. They can't cut us off. They'd be cutting their own throat. So Canada absolutely is dependent upon us. Now, if we added a manufacturing arm, it would be AI is deflationary. Most technology is in a deflationary spiral. So, Elon's the one that said, "Hey, we'll have a loss of jobs in the future." He wasn't even talking about Doge at the time. He was just talking about all of the U.S. will be on a universal income at some point. Why would you be on universal income if you have all this growth?
So we're steering everybody toward communism for UBI? Is that what we're doing?
I'm just suggesting what he said. But we already have too many people on a socialist program. You got 15 or 20 million people living in this country, already counted as part of the population that get everything for free. When did you start shouting about the communism? Shit, it's been coming.
Well, I'll say this